Okay, so this is our Buy Your First Home class series. We're doing securing financing today, and we have Adam Walmsley with us from Cardinal Financial to talk a little bit about financing, loans, first-time homebuyer programs, and all the good stuff. So this is just a little bit about us. We're Paige and Reagan. I know you know this, Justin, but we made a cute slide and put pictures of us on it. So that's me and my boyfriend Boston, and then these are the girls on the team. And then
yeah, that's my boyfriend Tom. And we really wanted to start this program because we're super passionate about helping people achieve their dreams of owning a home. And we believe that buying your home is a big deal and it's a great investment. It's exciting, and we want to kind of just educate everyone. A lot of people who are younger or maybe just don't know as much, they just don't think they can when they can. And we just want everyone to be able to. It's a good investment. Start it now when you can.
absolutely. Okay, so this is just a little bit about our class. So we're going to go through every single chapter of the book, Your First Home, which is written by Gary Keller. This book is really awesome. It really is just a staple guide for teaching you how to buy a home, and really goes in depth on the process, even more than we do. It's really good. So we started out with deciding to buy and finding your agent. We did that last time. And then today we're doing securing financing. Then we'll start with identifying your criteria and finding your home. And then we'll go on from there to make an offer and perform due diligence. And then we'll do closing and everything after that. So, and those are the dates too. So if you want to come to our next one, Justin, you can.
Okie doke.
Okay. And then this just goes over what we talked about in week 1.
Sorry.
Okay.
I feel like we want to be able to see. Anyway, sorry guys. So yeah, this was just deciding to buy and finding your agent. So buying a home will build your equity. It'll increase your net worth. And then we went over the 7 common myths about buying a home and we busted them. If you're paying rent, you can afford to buy a house generally. There's never a wrong time to buy the right property. There's plenty of down payment assistance options available to you. Your credit score doesn't have to be perfect. The house you get will get you to your dream house. You're not necessarily buying your dream house the first time. 37% of first-time home buyers are single, alone, like just single people that sign a loan. 70 and then student loan debt doesn't need and shouldn't prevent you from buying a house. Sorry, it's been a long day. I'm stumbling on my words.
Okay, so the first thing that we need to know about financing is what is a mortgage. So a mortgage loan is a loan that is secured to buy a piece of real estate. So that's going to buy you a house, and the lender will hold the legal title to that property until the loan is paid off. So there's 3 basic factors of a mortgage, and that's the down payment, the interest rate, and then the term. And we're going to talk about those.
So what's your down payment? A down payment is the initial payment you make towards your home. It's calculated as a percentage of the entire home. Sorry, someone else is here. Sorry. So this could be 3% to 20% of the home's purchase price. It's really up to whatever you want, but as low as 3%, especially with some first-time homebuyer down payment assistance programs. Bunch of loan types that designated specifically for first-time homebuyers. And they only require 3 to 5% down. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I think that it's pretty common for your first home to be that low of a down payment.
Yeah, you can do as little as 3%. I'd say most first-time home buyers are probably putting down 3%. There are 0% too. So this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions. Is you see it all the time. Like, I don't know, probably TikTok is the most relevant to first-time home buyers. Is they think they need a lot of cash in order to get into a house, and they need 10%, 20% down even. It's like, well, I'm never going to buy a house because I'm never going to get that much money. But that's just not the reality. That's a good starting point is, $3,000-$4,000. That's a really good starting point. So if you have some money saved up, tax season's right around the corner. And that'll get you there. So that's you're right. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. So
Absolutely.
Awesome.
The second thing too, and I'll let you kind of touch on this, Adam, is that there's first-time homebuyer down payment assistance programs. So, those entry down payment options are pretty low, but if you don't have it, there are programs to help you out. So I'll let you talk about those.
Yeah, so there's two parts. So there's your down payment and then there's your closing costs. So people combine those together and that creates your total cash to close. Some people think that down payment and closing costs are mean the same thing, but it's not. You have your down payment, which is your equity in the property. What that means is however much the property is worth, you have 3% of equity in the property. So say you're buying a $200,000 house, that's $6,000 that you have stake in the property. And then you have closing costs too, which is like lender fees, title fees, home insurance, all that stuff. There are programs that cover your down payment and you have to pay the closing costs. Now, the closing costs can be paid by the seller, and that's where Page and Reagan come in, is they negotiate into the contract and have the sellers pay those closing costs. So that's why $3,000 to $4,000 is very, very realistic. If you pair it with a down payment assistance program, it's really good.
Yeah, and definitely. And if you're curious about if you qualify for those programs or kind of what options are out there, you want to talk more, Adam really is a great resource. He's taught Reagan and I a lot about the programs, and so he's a really good person to ask questions to.
Yeah, and it's no cost, no hard credit pull up front. So it's no obligation. If you just want to see where you're at, I can help. So
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so the next thing that we need to know about a mortgage, so we talked about that down payment and a little about closing costs too, which is great. Second is that interest rate. So an interest rate is basically a fee that the lender is going to charge you for borrowing their money. It's a percentage of the loan amount, and they're variable. So they change with the market, which I'm sure everybody has heard about interest rates being talked about in the last year or so because there's been a lot going on with them. They were raised and then now they're being brought back down some. So they change.
Yeah, and so depending on your situation, it might make sense for you to just buy the house now at the higher rate, and then in a year or so, if they do come down, you can always refinance your home and get a lower rate down the line. We know a lot of people that got locked in at like almost 8, and if they just wait a little bit longer, they'll probably be at 6 soon, and so that way they can lock it down lower. But regardless of the rate, buying a home is always a great investment if you can. And we know like lenders are really great and they're always try to help you the best they can. And like I know Adam will try to get you a lower rate if you can qualify. We knew someone who actually got locked in at a 5.7 just because their credit was so high. And so they're variable. So don't get scared if you see in the news that they're 7, because yes, that's high, but it's always subject to change.
Right. And it's high. 7 and 8% feel very high because in the previous years we've been at 2 and 3%. And so that is a big difference. But if you look historically over the last 40 years, 7% is actually average. And there was a time in the 80s, I think, where interest rates were actually like 18%. So I'm really grateful for our 7% at that point. And one thing I wanted to say too, we know that regardless of what your interest rate is, buying a home is always a great investment because if you're going to hold on to it, it will appreciate. It'll make you money. So it's a better option than renting, period, regardless of the interest rate, because the interest rate on renting is 100%. So that's my 2 cents.
no, exactly. Just wanted to hop in.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people that are like, well, of course realtors and mortgage lenders are going to say that because they want you to buy a house from them. But it's like, I looked up this statistic because I was interested. It's how many millionaires are created from real estate. And I knew the number was high, but I didn't know how high it was. It's 90% of millionaires attribute their wealth to real estate. So
Yeah.
it truly is a great investment because the market will always continue to go up. And it is very true. You can refinance later. So if the payment makes sense for you and the house makes sense, why would it matter what the interest rate is? Because that will eventually go down. Everything goes down and everything goes back up. It's just how it is. So if those two things make sense for you, then it's the right time to buy a house. If they don't, then it just doesn't. It just depends on your situation, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Real estate is the fastest way to build wealth in America. And just like that stat Adam gave, I mean, we're telling you guys true stuff. Okay. What is next? So the third thing we need to know about a mortgage is the term.
So a term will determine how much interest you pay over the life of the loan and how quickly you build equity by paying it down. So the term simply is just the length of the loan, how long it will take you to pay off the property if you make the exact mortgage payment every month. The most common mortgage that you'll see is a 30-year, but you can choose to do a 15-year. I've seen a couple of people do that because they just want to get it paid off faster.
You can
But yeah.
always, the thing too, so you can always make extra on your payment. So the reason that we say if you make that exact amount, you're more than welcome to pay more. And that'll help you pay off your loan early. But that term is just how long. The most common one is 30-year. Adam, how often do you see other ones?
I'd probably say 95% of all
Yeah.
that we do are 30-year fixed rate.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Probably
what
95%. I've heard a lot of people be like, I don't want to be paying on a mortgage for 30 years. And like you said, you can make more than the minimum payment.
yeah.
So there are calculators that if you make $100 extra per month, this will speed up your payoff process by 12 years or whatever it is. So you're not, more than likely, you're not going to be paying on it for the full 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. And two, you're also not locked into that because you're able to sell your home at any point in time too.
Yeah,
If
most
it makes
people
sense.
don't stay in the house for 30
Yeah,
years.
the average American moves every 5 to 7. So most people aren't actually paying off that full thing. They pay it off when they sell it. So okay, so these are the 7 steps to financing your home. So we're gonna walk you through these. The first one is to establish your budget. So it's probably the most important, honestly. It's what can you afford and understanding kind of where your money's at. So you have to make sure that your mortgage payment is an amount you feel comfortable with paying every single month. The lender is going to give you a budget, but it's really up to you to decide what you're comfortable paying. And I always say to leave room in your budget for the unexpected because you don't want to strap yourself so tight in your budget where you're paying all bills that you don't have extra for savings or if something goes wrong in the house, what if you have to replace a part or a system? You need money for that. And beyond that, what if you want to buy new furniture for your house or you want to go out to eat, things like that? You got to keep that in mind. You don't want to be so strapped with your house payment that you're quote unquote house broke. And so just make sure that it's really something you feel comfortable with paying because a lot of times we see where someone might get pre-approved for an amount that's higher than what they're comfortable monthly. So let's say you get a pre-approved for 200,000 and that payment is 1,500. Well, you may only be comfortable with a $1,200 payment. So we're not buying a $200,000 house. We're buying a little bit less than that. So that lender pre-approval is kind of a range and you get to decide where you actually buy at.
Yeah, so rule of thumb we usually go by is your mortgage payment shouldn't be more than a third of your monthly income. That way, yeah, you have money to buy stuff that you want, that's stuff you need, like groceries and gas. And yeah, like what if your dog gets sick and you have to go to the vet? Like there's always things that happen. So I had to replace my tires a couple weeks ago and I didn't know I had to do that. So but yeah, so that's just the general rule that we tell people. And then so if you can calculate that and you can kind of figure out the budget yourself, but a lender will help you tell you what you can actually qualify for.
Yeah.
There's what you can do and what you should do.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right. There's a big difference between those two. Okay, so something too that I wanted to kind of break down. So your mortgage payment is actually 4 parts. I feel like a lot of people may not know this. And so it's broken down into your principal, which is your loan amount, and then that interest with the principal. So it's principal, interest, property taxes are calculated into that, as well as homeowners insurance. And so whenever you have your monthly payment, it'll have all of those things combined. So just know that if you think that the principal and interest on the house is only 1,000, but then we're going to add in property taxes and homeowners insurance. And so that's why it's always a little bit more.
I do want to say something real quick about that.
Yeah,
So
go.
a thing we see all the time is on Zillow. It'll tell you, see your monthly payment, and they see, oh, that's super cheap. That would make sense. And it's like a $250,000 or $200,000 home, and the payment's like $1,200 or something like that.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And then they get through it and they're like, oh, well, that payment's actually $1,600. It's not $1,200. Like, well, Zillow told me that. Well, Zillow doesn't. Zillow is basing that on 20% down, dirt cheap property taxes, dirt cheap homeowners insurance, and it's just unrealistic. And it's honestly, it's a way to you to get you to click the button so they
Yep.
can get some more business.
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind. That there's probably more factored in until you talk to somebody like me. You don't truly know.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because we like to tell people never to trust their life
Yeah.
in
No.
any aspect. So yeah, just if you have a question about a house you see on Zillow, ask us. We'll figure it out for you. But
Especially numbers too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You always want to get those from your lender because they're going to have the most exact ones. So
the second step to financing your home is choosing the right lender. So a lender is an individual or group or a financial institution that makes funds available to a person with the expectation that the funds will be repaid. So basically, they're the person that gives you the money, the loan. Referrals from your real estate agent and people that you trust are what we say the best way to find a reputable lender who can get the job done. Having the right lender working for you can assure that details are handled accurately and timely. And it's also important to have a good lender who, while they can't control every single rate, has a good head for number, knows your market, and can give you accurate estimates. We like to say go local just because they do know your market. They care more because they're here. Like it's their business, it's their town, it's their life too. We had a little experience with a lender just like in California, and he just didn't answer any calls, which he wasn't a bad lender. He just, the communication with us wasn't there, and we felt like the best service wasn't being provided. So
right, absolutely. We always suggest to go local for those reasons. And we say, obviously, if you have someone that you know or you've worked with in the past, or maybe a family member recommended to you, that's great too. But we always have those recommendations because we work with lenders a lot. And so we can really tell you who are good ones and who's going to get the job done, because you want to make sure that it's not just making sure that you get qualified for the loan, but it's actually getting you to the closing table, and the lender is a huge piece of that process. And so we want someone that's going to do a good job and actually get you there on time. So
Yeah, I'm local. I'm hearing more. And I have face-to-face meetings with clients all the time, so it's definitely not uncommon for people to come and sit down and actually get pen to paper, like the olden days. But the difference between me and somebody like Rocket Mortgage is, like you said, they don't care, honestly, if the loan closes or doesn't close, because they're probably in the basement in California, just like somewhere that it's no effect on them. They don't care. But I'm in this area, and if something happens to the loan, it was my fault, then word gets around, and that affects me. So
yeah,
we definitely care. And it's important. So that's
Yeah.
definitely one of the reasons you should go with local.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have a great lender on this Zoom, if anyone's wondering.
Adam is one of our favorites. He definitely is really great for first-time home buyers. He's young and he understands the market really well and all your questions. So lean on him. Okay, number 3 is apply for the loan and get approved. So that's after you've met with Adam or a lender, and they're going to get some information from you, and you're going to go through an approval process. So it's called a pre-approval, and it's the best way to get a house because we want to do this before we even start looking at houses. That way we know what your budget is, what we can afford, and then what houses we're actually going to be able to look at. And then you have to have one before you make an offer because it shows that seller that you're ready to buy it. whenever you apply for the loan, you'll need proof of income, employment information, on debts, and then information on your assets too. Um, and like we said earlier, pre-approvals and lenders can determine what you can borrow, but only you get to decide what you actually can afford. So, Adam, do you want to talk any about pre-approvals?
I would just say be prepared. So if you have like W-2s, pay stubs, income documentation, it'd be a good idea to kind of know where your credit's at. You can get a general idea on Credit Karma. So do you have any recent late payments that we should know about, or things like that? Do you pay child support? Do you, just something on your credit that would be important to know? And like you said, you need a pre-approval in order to make an offer on a home or even see a home sometimes. So it's very, very important. And that's probably one of the first steps that you should be taking. Because you
Yeah.
want to see where you're at, and you need it anyways to do a lot of things. So
Yeah, absolutely. We always say that that's the second step in our process. The first step is to meet with us, and then we get you with the lender. So that's always second.
Okay, so the fourth step is to decide among your mortgage options. So you're gonna have to decide which of these factors is most important to you. A low monthly payment, putting down as little as possible, building up equity quickly, or minimizing risk. So there's just different loan types and there's different amounts that you can put down. We kind of talked about, and changing all of those is gonna changing one of those might change a little bit. So like if you put a lot more down, your monthly payment might be lower, but also do you have the money to put down?
Right.
Or if you put nothing down, your monthly payment might be a little bit higher, but you can get into a house sooner because you don't have to save 10 grand. So it's kind of just deciding which is important to you, and your lender will help you with that.
Yeah, I think that the lender really, this is probably one of the most important steps because they're going to actually walk you through what your options are and what would be best for your scenario. So there's different options. An FHA loan starts at 3.5% down. There's some conventional loans that can start at 3%. So your lender is going to be able to tell you what you qualify for, and then based on what your goals are, which option would probably be best for you.
yeah, we have people asking all the time, what would my payment look like on 3.5% or on 5% down or 10% down? Or what does it look like at this purchase price, or just whatever certain house it is? You can get numbers on that house before you actually go see it, maybe. So you can see, oh, this is in my price range. I do want to go see it. Or maybe it's not your, maybe it's maybe you really like the house, but then you get numbers on it and you're like, heck no, I don't want to be paying that much for it. And then you don't go
Yeah.
see it, and you saved yourself hours over going to see the house, just whatever it is. And so that's just a lot of different things to think about.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure. So the fifth thing in financing your home is to submit a purchase contract to the lender. So this comes after we've made an offer and we get it signed by the seller, which we'll kind of cover. I think that's next week's session.
Mhm.
So we'll go more in depth on that. But once we have that contract in place and you are buying a home, we send it over to the lender. That's your agent's job. We get that to the lender, and then they get the ball rolling on actually getting your loan process to close. So we'll put together that purchase contract, and then your lender will take it and do what they do.
Your thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next step in financing your home is getting an appraisal and title. So once it's time to close, there are two things you will need to do: get the property appraised and make sure the title is clear. So an appraisal will help the lender understand the actual value of the property before finalizing the loan.
A lender's not going to loan you more money than a property is worth. So that's very
Right.
important. They want to make sure that they're giving you a fair amount for what kind of property they're financing. So
Yeah, and so an appraisal, just so you guys know, an appraisal will typically be 600. I think I read that there might be going up this year, so they might be more like 700, and you do have to pay for that in the under contract process. So make sure if you're thinking about buying, you have at least 700 saved up for that. And then we'll get more into that later on. But I just wanted you to know that is something you have to pay for. But I also know that we've seen quite a few deals where we get a really good deal and so like the appraisal will come in way over what we're actually buying it for. And that's good for you to know, because then when you go to sell it, you're already making money.
Yeah, you walk in with extra equity beyond what you paid on your down payment. So that's really awesome when that
It's fun to
happens.
know. So
Yeah.
and then so title is the legal rights to a property. It makes sure the seller has the rights to sell the home to you and that you have clear title when you buy it. We kind of went over this a little bit. We have some videos on TikTok if you want to see them, but you always want clear title. You always buy title insurance. It's very important because you do not want to buy a house and then 2 years down the road someone comes and claims it and then you have to go to court. It's a mess.
It just protects you, really.
Yeah.
So title insurance is really important. And then we always make sure we go with a good title company as well, because they're part of your team. So yeah. Adam, do you have anything that you want to say about appraisals? I know we had both read that maybe they were going up on prices this year.
Yeah, I think they are going up a little bit. I think they're like $700. So you will have to pay for that out of your pocket. Not part of the closing costs, so that's something to think about. So you can't get into the house for literally $0, but there are things that come with getting the house. So but yeah, as far as the appraisal goes, a little bit more information is the difference between an appraisal and a home inspection. So sometimes people don't know what the difference are between those two. An appraisal, like it says here, determines the value of the property. A home inspection determines the condition. So how is the roof? How is the foundation? How is the windows, siding, all that good stuff? It gives you a detailed report. The appraisal does not go into much detail on as much as the condition as it does how much is the house worth in comparison to other houses within the neighborhood. So a lot of people don't know the difference between those two. But they're not the same thing, but that's just kind of the general basic explanation of what the difference is between those two things.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. Appraisals do consider condition in some cases, but not like an inspection does. An inspection is solely for the condition of the home. So that's a great thing to say. Okay, so next is obtaining funding. So after we get through the appraisal, title work, inspection, all of that, you're gonna actually get to close your loan, and your lender will get your funds to the title company so that you can buy it. They do a final verification and approval for the loan, and then it becomes yours.
Exciting.
Okay, so these are just some key points about what we've talked about. Having the right lender is so important for the entire process, not only getting you the right financing and making sure that it's the best option for you, but then getting you to the closing table to actually buy the house. They're really important. Look for recommendations from family members or your real estate agent to help you find one if you don't have one already. And then I think that one's probably the most important, is that just make your budget, and only you can decide what you can afford. Regardless of what you get approved for, you get to decide what you can afford monthly. So it's really important.
Yeah. And then the last key point is that you don't need to save 10 to 20% for a down payment. There are plenty of loans as little as 3% down, and there are a bunch of first-time homebuyer programs specifically for you guys, first-time homebuyers, that can require even less sometimes. And if you guys have any questions about the logistics of those or anything, Adam, he knows so much. He's already taught me a bunch about them, and he would love to help you guys. I also wanted to add that if you have talked to a lender and you don't know how you feel about them, you really don't like your numbers, it's okay to shop around.
Absolutely.
We actually have someone right now who she's in between, just filling out different pre-approvals and just trying to see what works best for her, because she's in a little bit of a tighter spot. But you're not locked in. Just because you give someone your information, you do not have to. If you don't like them, you can get out, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
it's like a second opinion, like a doctor or anything. If you get a diagnosis or they run your numbers for you, you can always get a second opinion and just see who has the best options for you, because all lenders have different things to offer. So yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. That's a good point.
So if you guys have any questions, you can ask, or you could put them in the comments, give us a text, whatever you feel comfortable with. But yeah, next week we're going to be going over identifying your criteria and putting in an offer.